live.
Here we go.
What's poppin', my peeps? Someone else could host.
All right. Normally Tommy takes care of the whole introductory honors. It's kind of his thing, but he couldn't make it today. He's got an actual job.
So the worldwide leader came calling.
The worldwide leader, the Mouse themselves.
Oh.
So Tommy's cutting probably Selection Sunday footage right now. We know he's tuned in. He did say he was going to text me some live reactions and stuff like that, so we do have that to look forward to.
All right, so at least we got inside source.
All right, yeah, exactly. Straight from the source. But welcome to the first Glue Guys live stream. Selection Sunday. Been waiting all year for today. We got first round of the NCAA tournament literally right around the corner. I couldn't be more excited. It's been so much fun all year long. Making this show with Tommy, getting picked up by Kyle and the guys at Underground who are making all of this possible, this live stream. Kyle spent a long time getting this all set up. We got Patty Pitts in here. This is the first time that Patty and I have worked together, so I'm sure that a lot more collabs in the future. You got the champ belt on, the Duke jersey. I love that. ACC title champions. I'm just as excited as he is. So it was probably the ugliest basketball game I've seen in 20 years, but it doesn't matter because Duke won.
Exactly. I will put this out to everyone now too. If anyone can guess which Duke, I'll stand up a little bit here. Which Duke jersey this is? Whose Duke jersey this is? Number 5, Mason Plum. Oh, I already kind of said it. But yes, this is a Mason Plumlee Duke jersey right now. I just want to know.
Oh my God!
Plumlee, I don't know. When I got it, someone was like, "No, it's Austin Rivers or something." I'm like, "No, who the hell was number 5?" And we found out it's Mason Plumlee. So I will always be repping the big men as well. I love it,
dude. I love the Plumlees. The whole Plumlee line.
They're incredible.
They were so good. They were all so good. I think they all got rings, didn't they? Every single one of them. Marshall won in 2015, and then the other two won in 2010.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. I think that. Yeah, they all got rings. They all got rings.
Good for them.
So absolutely. So all right. So here's how tonight's show is going to work. We, unfortunately, due to copyrights and stuff like that, can't show you this stream. But we're sure if you're watching this, you're probably watching the CBS.
We're like a companion for you.
Yeah,
We're that companion stream.
If you're sick of listening to the talking box heads on national TV, you can come listen to our talking box heads on the live stream. Exactly. We're probably more fun anyway.
Champ.
So exactly, with the champ. So in about 10 minutes, they're going to start revealing the bracket on CBS. We've got they're interviewing Shaka Smart over at Marquette. That was one of the I was telling these guys before the show that on the last episode, Tommy and I did our conference champ picks, and this was one of the 2 that I got right. So thank you, Marquette, for making me look good. Shout out.
Smart is a guy that feels like he has been around for 2 decades in just like the public spotlight. Like Wichita State is relevant because of him.
Yeah, dude. I did not recognize him at first. Like when Tom said that, Shaka was the coach at Marquette, I feel like that was just something that flew so far under my radar when it happened. And then I looked at him, I was like, that's not Shaka Smart. Since when did he have hair? Like he looks like a totally different person than the dude at VCU that I remember from 10 years ago.
Like, that's insane that he has been around this long. Like, it's rare for, I feel like, college basketball in particular, like for coaches to stick around in the public spotlight, especially if you're moving from school to school to school.
Mm-hmm.
And he's somebody that just lives in college basketball lore no matter what.
Yep, absolutely. No, he's dude, he gave us one of the greatest Final Four runs of all time. Like that was such an insane tournament.
That's like one of those that's in the pantheon. I think it's them, like the 2005 George Mason team, like
was that 05?
I think it was 05, yeah.
I think it was 06, because didn't Florida win the title? The only reason I know this is because when I was young, for some reason I had a pennant from that Final Four hanging in my room with Florida and George Mason and LSU, I think. No, it was. It was. This is my dad's favorite story to tell about me. He will not stop telling it anytime basketball comes up around somebody new. When I was 11 years old, and it was when I was first really getting into being a Duke fan. So this is a whole story about how I became a Duke fan, but basically, long story short, yeah. So basically, long story short, my dad was a basketball coach and at the D3 level, and he coached for a guy named Jerry Welsh, who is one of the greatest Division III basketball coaches of all time. Undefeated national championship in '86, 60-game win streak at the D3 level, which was the biggest win streak, only behind UCLA until Gino Auriemma took over at UConn women. And while I was growing up, Welsh had retired from coaching, and he's now a professor at Duke. And so he used to send me Duke memorabilia in the mail when I was a little kid. So nice. I went to see my first Duke game, was Duke versus Wake Forest, J.J. Redick, Chris Paul, which was an insane experience. I wish I'd been a little older so I could remember it a little better. The only thing I really remember is that the dude sitting next to me and my brother was really upset with us for, being children. So he actually threatened to throw us out of the game, and thankfully the other dude sitting next to us was super nice and was like, "You're really going to throw a 10-year-old out of a basketball game? Like, are you serious?" So funny. But that I remember it was 06 because that year we were shopping that day in the town like 30 minutes away. Potsdam doesn't have a lot of shopping options, so we always had to go to this other town where they have a mall and a Walmart. And we're pulling out of the BJ's wholesale parking lot, and we're listening to the Elite Eight game between Duke and LSU. And I just, the seconds are ticking down. The announcer's on the radio, and that brings an end to J.J. Redick's college basketball career. And I just lose my mind in the backseat. I'm 11 years old, crying my eyes out in the BJ's parking lot because J.J. Redick's career is over, and he's my favorite Duke player of all time.
That's brutal.
Yeah.
So, we have somebody in the chat, Camp, who's a loyal underground listener. He's a Penn State fan. He watched it again. He said that finisher was so bad.
Dude, how do you travel?
Oh, my God.
That is tough. I understand that you may, but how do you go into that? Terrible shot. Worst part is he airballed it too. I think that's just a charity.
We were talking about that before we went live. We were watching that. I was invested in. I didn't even know that game got close because I was so invested in Houston, whether or not they can make a comeback. When they brought it, look, I'm just letting you know, I had a great weekend betting, but the Owen curse continued because I decided that once they got within 5, it'd be great to throw $20 on Houston to come back. And then, they just did not play offensive basketball at all. Also, I hate Kendrick Davis now. I guess that's the thing. He's every time he threw something up, it went in. But we switched over to the Penn State game, and I was telling you guys, I've noticed a trend. I don't know if it's just poor execution or poor coaching, but I've seen so many last-second situations over the course of this whole season where teams will take 3 timeouts to set up a play at the end of games, and they will – I don't know if the inbounder freezes up or what, but every time they'll mess up the execution. A lot of teams won't even get shots off. That was really he should have made a break for the basket on the near side. They had 4 guys across the foul line. All one guy had to do was slip a curl cut to the rim, and you had a lob, and they just didn't look for it. The guy stared down the opposite sideline the whole time. I don't. No, he almost did. The guy had to jump up to get it, and then they botched the handoff. He flipped it to him, and the guy bobbled it for a second. So maybe if he had been able to get it in motion and go to his left, he might have been able to get a decent shot off. I don't know. But I've noticed a trend with and I guarantee there's going to be at least 2 or 3 games in the tournament that end that way, where it's going to be one possession and coach is going to call timeout. He's going to draw up some overly complicated play that they haven't practiced, and someone's going to screw up a screen or a handoff, and they're not even going to get a shot off, and that's how their college career is going to end. And I'm going to feel so bad for them. But at the same time, I'm gonna laugh, just because it's been abysmal this year.
100%. Before we keep going, do want to give a shout out to the sponsor keeping us energized throughout all of the NCAA tournament. It's our friends over at W Energy. It's in the ticker below. They are changing the game on energy drinks. Oh, and I'm going to have to get you hooked up with them because they are top notch. As somebody who needs, that caffeine boost, but needs it to be jitter and crash free so we can keep going, that's what Dubby's providing because they're going to war on big energy. They're cleaning things up. There's no sugars, no artificial colors, no maltodextrin fillers. It's it's the cleanest energy out there, and it's going to get you through this month of March. You're going to be able to watch every single game that's on TV. So you guys can go to war on big energy with us and go to dubby.gg and use code underground to get 10% off any order. It's a direct way to support us here at Underground Sports Philadelphia. That's dubby.gg. Use code underground for 10% off your order.
You heard the man. Need all that energy for this month of March. We don't sleep during March, especially next weekend.
100%.
I mean, if you need that extra, I'm manic when it comes to March Madness, so I know that I might not need that extra pick me up, but if you need it, for sure, hit up w.gg, just like Kyle said. We are right on 6 o'clock. As soon as this commercial breaks over, they're going to start revealing the bracket. Does anybody have any hot takes about what they think is going to happen before we get there?
I don't know if it's a hot take, but it's weird for me this year. I'm a Villanova fan.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first year I don't have an allegiance to a team in the tournament.
I saw something saying that a stat saying like this will be the first time in like 50 years or something that a Philly-based school will not be in the NCAA tournament.
First time since 1977 that no team from the City Six is in, and the first time since the expansion to 68 teams that it's happened.
Mm-hmm. It was actually really funny. Some guy, I was reading through a Reddit thread where they were talking about this, and some guy goes, if Villanova or some Philly school had made the tournament, I would have bet my life savings on them to lose in the title game.
Oh, they just got out ahead of it and said, we're not even going to make the title game. We're just going to lose.
Just the way the Philly sports have gone this year.
We'll just lose our conference tournament games. And
yeah,
out
exactly.
of the way early.
Man.
So
big year 2023.
Speaking of Villanova, Jay Wright on the television.
I must be behind in the stream because I'm watching a small girl walk through an empty school. So, okay, yeah, no, I was way behind.
Like a John Mayer music video.
Yeah.
We've got another Michigan man here. DJ is in the stream.
Wait, Owen's from Michigan?
He's a Michigan
I'm not
man.
from Michigan. I am a big Michigan fan though. My dad's an alum.
Go, baby.
Absolutely.
So we're all Michigan people here.
Yeah, there we go.
Hits. No, don't try and do that. No.
What are you talking about, dude? One Pride.
Say
Red Wings.
Say Worcester.
Like, what are you? Don't even try.
That's why you can't be.
Oh God, here we go.
Yeah, I'm too. You can't take the Boston out of me.
No.
I'm disappearing slowly.
Oh, you're getting blipped.
Yeah, we had a tough year this year as Michigan fans, but we'll win the NIT. That's fine.
Yeah,
We're
Michigan
young. They're young. That's all. They're young, and they had a tough schedule. Like
they did.
Michigan had what, like 12 quad one games this year, if not more. It's like
Something like that. I mean,
yeah,
it wasn't.
hasn't played that many quad one games before, and then to be so many freshmen and sophomores, they're just young.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. We got the first area, the South region. Bama, of course, coming in as the number 1 overall seed. I think we all expected that. Bama has been absolutely lethal. I definitely learned my lesson about them pretty recently. Just, I think I'm used to. I like it when spreads are like over double digits because I feel like in college basketball they get covered a lot. And then I remember, I think they were playing somebody decent. They're playing Georgia. Okay, Georgia might not be decent, but like I literally picked Georgia to cover 37.5 and they didn't.
That's
That's the type of team Bama is. They are going to blow you out and keep blowing you out for 40 minutes. Like they jumped on A&M today. Absolutely took it to them, and A&M has been dynamite for the last month or so. Maryland at the 8 seed. That's another team, high octane offense. Play tough schedule. Oh, that's a tough draw though. That's
That's a
Anybody-
gross 8-9.
Anybody who's listened to like our show all year, Tom and I have gone on and on and on about the Big 12 and talked about how lower seeded Big 12 teams are probably going to make deep runs just because they've run the absolute gauntlet already. So anything they see in the tournament is probably just going to be like another Tuesday at the office.
Oh, Charleston in there. Is
Okay.
that
I like that game.
That is definitely an interesting game.
Who is it?
SDSU with a
San
5
Diego
seed.
State Charleston in the 5-12.
That's an interesting game. That's a good 5-12 matchup.
I currently have the Rochester, Georgia game on KB. It's
Nice.
15-14 in the fourth.
Virginia versus Furman. Okay.
Okay, I gotta say this. Furman, I'm rooting for them in a sense of they have one of the coolest team mascots. They are
They do.
the Furman
What is wrong with my
Paladins.
camera, bro?
They're the what?
Paladins never gets used as a mascot. That is an awesome mascot.
Isn't that a D&D phrase?
That is awesome.
It's like Tucky
Go.
the elephant, bro.
I could go full nerd and give you a full in-depth explanation on what a paladin is. I'm not going to do that, but let's just say I played a lot of World of Warcraft in my day.
No, please enlighten me. Please enlighten me. I'm like so serious right now.
Long story short, a paladin is just any run-of-the-mill knight that trades his sword in for a hammer and devotes his entire life to God.
Oh, Thor.
So a Christian.
Thor, yes, exactly. Paladins are Thor. Thor's a paladin. That's exactly what it is.
Here's your Baylor matchup, Owen. Baylor drew UC Santa Barbara.
I haven't seen UC Santa Barbara play yet this year, but Baylor is. I'm so low on Baylor right now. I'm not gonna lie, just because I watched them absolutely flounder away their game against Iowa State in the Big 12 tournament. I got so angry watching that game. Like, their whole offense was just, at the end of the game, was just Adam Flagler driving to the rim, trying to make some sort of crazy acrobatic finish, messing it up, and then looking at the ref while lying on the floor like this. Was not a fan.
So calm. They're so calm. They're like, cool. Like, fucking get hyped. You're in the tournament. You're in the dance. Like, what are we? I can't be the only one who is that annoyed.
Yeah, no, that was like you, especially after seeing what Charleston did. They're like Arizona, like that's like the picturesque difference between like the small schools and schools like Arizona. You got Charleston in there freaking out. I think they got a 12 seed. Arizona's there as a 2 seed, just like at the country club, like we expected this, and yeah, you should expect it. You're in a top 10 team all year, but still, like it's kind of it's exciting to see your name pop up. I know I'm excited. Like when I was in college and like we had our selection Sunday for D3 and we saw our name pop up, like we knew we were getting in, but it was still a freaking awesome experience.
Yeah, no, I'm
like getting a little excited.
Arizona bounces first round because of that.
That's the 15-2. I'm not gonna lie. Watching that, I watched the Princeton Yale game today. I could see it. Princeton plays excellent defense. The only thing that I'm going to say is they're going to be so undersized. But then again, St. Peter's last year had no business beating Kentucky on paper. 0.
St. Peter's, I watched them throughout my collegiate career, and they were ass.
Yeah. So that's a very interesting. That was a very interesting region. There's a lot of upset potential in that region, but it also feels like it could be straight chalk. The most interesting matchup for that one for me is definitely Maryland, West Virginia. You know, people have been comparing the Big 10 and the Big 12 all year. Which conference is better? Personally, I think it's the Big 12. And that's like coming from a Michigan fan. Like I think the Big 12 is just a better overall conference. Like you're playing against a top 15 team almost every other night in that conference. So that's going to be interesting for me. I do think that Maryland does match up well, though. I do think they match up well. They're up tempo. West Virginia has been hit or miss, and one thing that I have harped on a lot is that home court advantage helped a lot of Big 12 teams this year. For some reason, teams in the Big 12 just did amazing on home court. So you move all these games to neutral locations, and things could get very interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams too that are like either making it back for the first time or like first time like in forever that like I feel like we haven't seen their names. Like Furman's one of those teams.
Yep.
I feel like it's been forever since we've seen FAU in the tournament. Like they've been balling out this year, so that they're an exciting team. It's always one of those sneaky Florida teams too that will always like
right. No,
and it's like they're the lovable crew.
FAU is 26th in KenPom.
They've been real good this year.
They've been very good.
Speaking of KenPom, who made it out of the WAC? Because did you see that they changed that their conference tournament winner isn't their automatic bid?
I did not see that. It's
the team who has the best KenPom rating.
Wait, did they actually do that?
As far as I know, yeah.
How did I not hear about this? Hold on, I gotta look this up.
As far as I know, they're supposed to be sending their team, the team with the best KenPom in their conference.
It is Grand Canyon.
Grand Canyon won. They destroyed Southern Utah in the title game. It was like 86-64, something like that.
I wonder if they have the best KenPom.
Let me take a look. Highest ranked WAC KenPom team that I've Sam Houston State is the first WAC team that I've seen, unless I skipped over one, which I don't think I did.
I don't know.
Yeah, no.
I don't think they got in.
And they're 69th. They're 25-7.
I saw a bunch of videos on TikTok about it. Maybe they're in negotiations.
No. Okay. So I just found a Sports Illustrated article. They're not sending a team based on KenPom rankings, but they did seed their conference tournament based on KenPom rankings. That's what it was.
Okay.
So that's pretty interesting. All right. Of course, we all saw this coming. The Midwest region, Houston, number 1 seed. No surprise there. Lenardi's had them there as like the number 2 team for weeks now. They probably would have been number 1 had they beat Memphis today. And I'm not really gonna hold that against them. They didn't have Sasser, he makes that team go. They go as he goes. They held him out. Because they knew, hey, we have something bigger to play for. We're gonna let him rest, and we'll see what we can do. And then Memphis just came out, guns blazing. Nothing they could really do there. So Houston, a very, very deserving 1 seed. They were my preseason pick to win the national title. Northern Kentucky, there's another one of those teams that you've never seen in the tournament before.
Yep.
So that'll be fun to watch. See how they go against.
Oh, what a gross 8-9.
I must still be behind, man. Like,
y'all are so far ahead of me.
Yeah. Let's see. All right, so we got Iowa.
That is gross.
And that's gonna be an ugly basketball game.
That's ugly.
No one say anything yet. I have not seen.
I feel like it's gonna be one of those games that it's gonna be close in the first half, and then either team could win by 25.
Yep. Or it'll end up being like one of the grossest like unders of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That might be the first bet DJ ever places. The under in Iowa Auburn.
Slam the under. Slam it.
Oh, that is a good 12-5 matchup.
I like that. Yo, the 5-12s are good so far.
Right?
Those are always the best ones.
So, maybe it's just me, but I have like this vague memory of seeing Drake in a bracket like back in the late 2000s or whatever. They were a 5 seed. They were like really good that year. They finished season 30-4. And I just remember like filling out my bracket and their name stuck out to me for some reason. And then I was doing some research early in the year and I looked up that I don't think they made the tournament. I think they made the tournament maybe once in the last 10 years or something. And in my headcanon, they're like a consistent tournament team. They're not, but in my head they are. That's a really interesting matchup. I didn't see Miami being a 5. I thought they'd be more of a 4. I think they're a better team than they're seeded. I think Drake might have their hands full with that one. Iowa State is a 6. I don't think that's deserved. I definitely don't think that's deserved. I think that they're going to, but they drew a favorable matchup, definitely with this one. So they're probably going to move on. I don't see either Mississippi State or Pitt beating them. But I don't think Iowa State should have been a 6 seed. I think they should have been like a 9, maybe a 10. I think they overachieved in the conference tournament.
Shout out to Ben Piero. Xavier getting the 3 seed.
All right. They're always a good tournament team. Xavier's always a good tournament team.
They're either always really good or they disappoint you in the opening weekend.
Yes.
Yeah, been there. Look at Ken.
Yep.
Look at Kensaw St. Owls. They
Oh,
are.
this is their first tournament bid, I think, in school history. So
they get a 14.
Oh, that's gonna be a banger.
I'm not gonna lie, they could win that game.
Oh yeah, they could.
There's such a question about which version of them shows up. Like they rolled through the Big East and then forgot what offense was against Marquette. Only Xavier could hold Marquette under 70 points and still get blown out.
Let me tell you, that whole school is there right now, and they are lit. They are lit. There you go, Pitt. That's what you've been looking for.
Here we go.
Oh, okay. I take a 10 seed for Penn State. I take a 10 seed for Penn State.
Their whole mood just changed after losing that game.
Right.
Yeah.
They didn't even shower. Oh, Tommy's boys getting one of the darlings. Texas.
Oh boy.
2.
Yep, we saw this one coming.
Ew.
Colgate.
9 out of 10 basketball analysts do not.
I'm not gonna lie. Looking at that quad, that foursome, I'm pretty sure you could just pencil Texas into this Sweet 16 right now.
Mm-hmm.
None of those 3 teams is beating them. For some reason, Colgate's going to be the closest game too.
Yep.
Out of those 2 games, it's going to be closer than whoever they play. Probably, I think I'd pick A&M right now, just based on how they're playing.
I'd pick Penn State. Penn State's balling right now, low key.
They are. But so is A&M. I think that people just kind of forget that because they just got buzzsawed by Bama, but Bama's buzzsawing everybody. So that is a very
Bama's nasty.
They're ridiculous. The best thing about Bama is they can go ice cold. Like they live and die by the 3, but they can go ice cold, but they're just going to stop you from scoring. Like,
yep.
I've never known Bama to be like a defensively assertive team, but this year they definitely are.
I've never just known them to be a basketball team.
That's true. That's true.
If we be honest, like they'd had a few hoopers like kind of come through,
right?
Sexton and a few others, but like
right.
They never.
Avery Johnson was good there.
Yeah, but they've never been like a legitimate contender. Like
that's true.
This is like unprecedented. Are the times in Alabama changing?
Do you mean the tides?
Oh no! Hey, put him in timeout. Put him in timeout. That is a timeoutable offense.
You lobbed that one for me.
I did.
Yo, why does Kansas look so bored? Like they're getting a 1 seed. They know they're getting a 1 seed. They're just like, can we get this over with and go home, please?
That's where I'm gonna give Kansas the slide because it feels like every single year Kansas is in it. So
yeah, they're always a top 4 seed.
Dude, this is just a mandatory event they have to go to.
Yeah, Jalen Wilson. I think he's the best player in the country, but that man just looks so over being there.
Go home.
Best player in the country?
I think he is. From what I've seen, like if I'm starting a college basketball team, I'm taking like if there was like a fantasy draft for college basketball, I'm taking Jalen Wilson number 1. Like to build for 1 season this year, if I'm building a team, I'm taking Jalen Wilson number 1 overall.
I like that.
he's just not only is he like an incredible scorer and defender, but like if you listen to the stuff, the people around him, how they talk about him, he's a win at all costs type dude, and that is the guy you want leading your team.
Facts.
So, like if I want stats, I'd go Edie. If I want an actual basketball player, I'm taking Jalen Wilson.
Does Kansas have like a really good shot of winning the whole thing, or are they a number 1 seed? That's gonna be like
Kansas?
Yeah.
I honestly think they're better than they were last year. I think they're better than they were last year. We're gonna have to wait and see what happens with Kevin McCullough. He got held out against Iowa State with back spasms, or was it Texas? In one of the final 2 games of the Big 12 tournament, he left really early due to back spasms and didn't come back. And he's a big piece of what they do. I think that Texas game gets a lot closer if he plays. I don't think they were beating Texas. I think Texas was just they were seeing red. They wanted that game. Kansas was probably looking past them to the tournament, but I was not sold on Kansas early. Like Kansas is one of those teams where like I feel like they'll lose games that they just have no business losing. And we've seen them in the tournament before where like, you know, they'll get bounced in the second round by an 8 or a 9. Like it happens all the time. Kansas is very much first round or Final Four. There is no in between for them. And last year, obviously, they won the whole thing. And you can make the argument that Kansas was the worst of the 4 teams that made the Final Four last year. Like as crazy as the tournament was, with all the upsets, with the St. Peter's run, we ended up with 4 blue bloods in the Final Four: Nova, Duke, UNC, Kansas. And I think that probably if like brackets were all reset and you just had to pick the Final Four, Kansas probably had the fewest amount. Probably UNC just because of seeding. You know, people see number, like big number, little number, and they're like, okay, little number goes higher. Like, but they're just such a complete team, and they didn't have Self in the Big 12 tournament. They still made the title game, and Self is probably the best halftime adjustment coach in the country right now. The minute I got sold on Kansas was the Baylor game. Down 15 at halftime. They opened the second half on a 34-9 run.
That's insane.
Against Baylor, who is, I think they're a top 20 KenPom offense. Where are they? Yeah, Baylor is the number 2 offense in the country, and Kansas held them to 9 points over like 12 minutes. And just annihilated them. So Kansas is legitimate.
There was somebody in Kansas's locker room like, all right, boys, when the camera comes on, pretend to clap and feel enthused.
Yeah.
Dude, how could you? And those lazy boys, bro.
Yeah.
Enthused at all. I'd be snoozing.
Oh.
Grady Dick has it.
He's good. He's so freaking good.
He has the it factor. Like
absolutely.
That's a jersey that Pitts is going to end up getting no matter what team he gets drafted to.
What, Kirby Dick?
Grady Dick.
Dick. It doesn't matter, dude. Dick is the
Did you guys see the picture of the girl in the Kansas student section? The t-shirt said "I heart Dick." She was there like on multiple games, I think. That is going to be an ugly as hell game. Arkansas, Illinois. Oh my God.
These 8-9s are brutal.
That is going to be the ugliest game.
Ew.
Arkansas is going to win it by 30, and it's going to look like they both scored 20 points. Like
These
it's
two as a double-digit seed. Book it.
That's another great 5-12.
If you watched their last 2 games, especially I watched today's game, I was so impressed with how they changed up their defense in the second half and just took it to Dayton. Honestly, I that's probably my number 1 pick. 12-5 upset is VCU over St. Mary's. St. Mary's is very good, very very good. But I mean, the wins they have over Gonzaga, they don't hold as much water this year as they have in years past. Gonzaga is not. Yeah, they're the number 1 offense, but they're just not what they were. TCU is a 6 seed. So TCU has been my dark horse all year. Tom and I have hyped them up. We both think that Mike Miles Jr. might be one of the best players in the country and definitely the most important to his team. But with all the stuff that's happened with Jamie Dixon right now and their center Lampkin leaving the team, alleging abusive statements and racism from Dixon, like the only question I have about TCU is whether or not the chemistry and like the locker room stays together enough for them to make the run that they're capable of making. That and adjusting to losing your starting center. So
Gonzaga gets a 3 seed.
Gonzaga TCU would be a very good game. It would be a very good game. I don't know if Gonzaga would come out of that one though.
Wow. Northwestern a 7.
There's Grand Canyon.
They got the confetti for Northwestern. They got the confetti.
That's elite. You gotta always admire a nice good confetti.
That's a fun 7-10 matchup.
Yeah. Yeah, Boise's kind of flown under the radar this year. I watched them a little bit, not too much.
Boise's gonna beat them.
You think so?
Boise's gonna beat them.
I don't know. I picked Northwestern as to win the Big Ten tournament, and it made me look like an idiot. But they were playing really, really good basketball there for a stretch.
Northwestern. When's the last time Northwestern was here? I don't know if any of
5 years ago.
Yeah, and
no, I remember because I went to the. I think so, but it was really close because I remember I went to. All right, UCLA, UC Asheville. We're not getting a 215 upset in that game. That's UCLA all the way. I went to the first round games in 2017 when they were in Buffalo. It was the year that because it was the year sandwiched in between the two Nova Natties. And that was the year that Northwestern was in, and I remember watching them lose on this giant screen in this bar across the street from the venue, like in between the game sessions. UConn and Iona. That game's got Tom Sonerchia written all over it.
Yes, it does.
UConn versus Rick Pitino.
He is
Iona
his fingers just like yes.
Absolutely. That's gonna be a really interesting game.
Iona's always pretty good for the MAC. I remember watching them. And they're just they play good. Yeah.
There's all the rumors floating around that Pitino is gonna go back to the Power 5, Power 6. I know St. John's was looking at him, and one other school I can't remember off the top of my head.
Wasn't it Georgetown?
It might have been Georgetown. They're
gonna get rid of Patrick Ewing.
Yeah, they fired him a couple days ago. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It was time. It was time.
It was.
So, wow. Duke is going to have a friggin' hard region.
It's about damn time.
So Purdue's going to be the 1 seed. We all know that. The 2 is probably going to be not Tennessee. Hold on, let me look up the net rankings. I keep looking at Ken Palm like it's the gospel.
I mean, just about.
It really is. No, so Tennessee is really Tennessee is going to be the 2 seed. I don't like Tennessee. I don't know. I don't care what the ratings have for them. I don't like Tennessee.
Matt,
they're 7-7
on the show on Wednesday. He said Tennessee is like on his do not pick list.
I've never seen it. They're for some reason they're ranked top 50 Ken Palm offense, but I've never seen a team go through just droughts the way that Tennessee goes through droughts.
It's like they just can't score the ball.
Yeah, and Ziegler's out for the year with the ACL injury, so any hope that they had of making the Final Four went with him. In my opinion, if they make a run, it'll be one of the most miraculous things we've seen, and nobody's going to notice because they're going to be a 2 seed.
Not no one's going to notice. Oh, that's unfortunate. My nail broke.
All right. Oh, I hate how they make us wait. All these commercials. I was watching the VCU Dayton game. They had 3 commercial breaks, last for a total of about 15 minutes. 1 minute of game time passed. At about the 12-minute mark of the second half, I wanted to throw my remote through the television earlier. It's obscene. College basketball games should not last over 2 hours.
Well, did you get that weird space where the under 16 was right before the under 12?
Yeah, no, that's part of the reason why it was because the under 16 didn't come until there was like 13 minutes left.
Yeah, and then the under 12 was right after.
Well, they called a timeout in between, and then they hit the under 12. So, like, I'm not kidding. Like, it went under 16. They brought it back, called like one possession, then a timeout was called, then the under 12. So I wasn't even paying attention to that. So I don't know what happened on the possession to make him call a timeout. Maybe he just didn't inbound it. I don't know.
Yeah,
but like,
pain. That's
all right, it was absolutely maddening. All right, so last region we got. Let's see, teams that haven't been seeded. We got Duke, Purdue, Tennessee, Marquette, Florida Atlantic, Utah State. This is going to be interesting.
I'm a big fan of Purdue's big guy, 15. That's what a hoss.
Oh, he's runaway national player of the year. If anybody beats him. So, but that's the secret to beating Purdue, though. That's why they went on their losing streak back there a couple weeks ago, because teams figured out you can let Edey get 30 and 15. You shut down their shooters, you're beating them anyway.
Yeah, bro. Because like that's how I would have played Kobe.
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna cap with you because Kobe didn't even like passing the ball anyway. All right, Kobe, you can go for 100 for all I care, but one, we're gonna outscore you.
What's Luke Walton gonna do over in the corner?
Nothing. Zero. Luke Walton gets 0.
Nothing.
Foul
Sasha
ball,
Vujacic, you
0.
think he's a threat?
Florida Atlantic
Oh, that's
with
a
the
nice,
9 seed.
That's a nice matchup for them.
Finally,
That game's going to be like 99-97.
we get a decent 8-9 matchup.
That's going to be such a high-flying offensive game. Memphis just put up 70-something on Houston. Like, and Florida Atlantic's one of the best offenses in the country.
That's where Dana's sister works, Deej.
Really?
Yeah, she's like
Okay.
the in-arena host for Florida Atlantic basketball.
Maya Vagabond.
Dang. Of course, they get a 5-12 matchup. I thought that winning the ACC would push them into the 4 bracket, but I guess not.
No, they look.
Oral Roberts, wow. That's a tough draw.
I
Y'all
love
better
that.
be. Hey,
That is
listen,
such a tough
Yo,
draw.
This is one of the best 5-12s across the bracket we've had in years.
It's insane. You have one of the best. You have one of the hottest and best defensive teams in the country in Duke, and then you have Oral Roberts, who might be the best offensive mid-major in the country. They have Max Abmas, and I forget his name, but they got this 7-footer who is basically a white Victor Wembanyama.
He's huge.
Well, so who's going to be the 2? Tennessee is 4th in the net. Who's going to be the 2 seed?
We're about to find out. Somebody who definitely
Kentucky's a
doesn't deserve
6.
I want to pick Louisiana just because I hate Tennessee. They're not going to win the game, but like
it. Duke
Kentucky is a 6 seed.
Duke might lose to Oral Roberts, man.
Don't you say that to me. Don't you say that to me.
That's a tough game, man.
Don't you say that to me.
We got to be honest here. We're talking upsets. That one's got to be looked at a couple times.
I've already got it going through my head, man. I don't need to be reminded already. Kentucky. Oh my.
Providence?
That is
Providence in the 6-11.
That is an absolute rough game for Kentucky. Tommy's still. I know Tommy. He hasn't. He's probably busy at work. He hasn't been able to give me any of his reactions, unfortunately. But I guarantee you right now, he looked at that game and went, "Damn it."
Kansas State, Montana State in the 3-14.
That's a kind of a weak matchup. Kansas State should run away with that one.
Yeah.
That's a solid basketball team.
The little brothers get the 7 seed.
You talking about mine?
Yeah.
I mean, we ain't getting in anyway, so I don't care. Where the Nets, the NIT selection show at?
They're gonna lose that game.
Probably.
They got
Wait.
USC in the 7-10.
They could.
Dude, is Indiana gonna get a 2 seed?
No,
Nope,
Indiana got
Marquette.
the 4.
Oh, I missed Indiana. Marquette got the 2. Okay, yeah. Okay, I totally forgot Marquette hadn't been picked yet. That makes so much sense. I'd much rather have Marquette as the 2 than Tennessee. Yo, this region, though, is so stacked.
This is a fun region. Marquette versus Vermont. Shout out to Ian McKay.
This is such a stacked region. Oh, my God.
Marquette should run away with that one, though.
There are 8 teams that could come out of this region.
I could see that.
Catamounts, baby.
Hey, no way they're just like at a B-dubs.
That's definitely what it looked like. That's
where I wish we were right now.
Wow. Wow.
Hitting on that Legend Mountain Dew.
Man.
We could be at Applebee's. That Dark Berry Bash is the way.
What?
Wow.
You don't know about the Applebee's exclusive Mountain Dew?
No, I
Okay.
don't.
Dark Berry Bash, bro. A true blue raspberry Mountain Dew.
Okay.
All right.
That gives me an excuse to go to Applebee's now. Okay.
I mean, yeah, just go at 9 o'clock tonight. Half off.
Wow.
I don't
No
want to
free
go down
ads.
to North Quincy at 9 o'clock.
You say it like that's a bad part of town or something.
All right. So we have our bracket. I'm looking around the internet. They haven't posted one yet. So let's just talk about it, break it down for a little bit. We'll see if I can get an actual like visual here before we start talking over our picks for games. I'll just say this right now. I'll say it again at the end of the show. But this week, the Glue Guys will be doing an earlier release episode. Obviously, the games start on Thursday. That's usually when we release our episodes. But we want you guys to be able to see and hear Tom's and my picks so you can stay away from every team that I pick because, as you know, I am cursed. So we will be recording our episode on Tuesday this week and getting it out Wednesday morning, so you will have a full 24 hours at least to listen to it before the games actually begin. We're figuring out what we want to do. I think on Thursday we might be having another live stream. We'll obviously I'm going to be parked in front of my television from noon to like 2 a.m. I'm not moving. And then on Friday, it's St. Patrick's Day. And a buddy of mine just picked up this like March Madness drinking game. You guys might not see me alive for a while. I'm just letting you know right now. We've been planning this for like 2 weeks once we found out that March Madness and St. Patrick's Day fell on the same day. So we will be picking out the best games on Thursday, and we'll hop in. We wanted to do this earlier in the season. Tom and I talked about it. I think we brought it up to you, Kyle, about picking some good games and just doing some kind of like watch-along color commentary stuff. Unfortunately, that couldn't happen just because of our busy schedules, but you know, it's March Madness. It's the best week. It's the best weekend of the year. There's going to be so many great games on, and every single game is meaningful. So, you know, it doesn't matter. We could turn on, you know, that 2:15 UCLA game where, you know, we all know UCLA is going to win by 30, but you're still watching because it's March Madness. So we'll tweet that out. You can see you have all the socials scrolling along the bottom there. We'll tweet out what games we plan on streaming, and Tommy, Kyle, and I will figure out once they release the times of the games and stuff. We'll
we'll get like a whole schedule graphic made. Or
Yeah, we'll pick like 2 or 3 games maybe on Thursday that we'll do watch-alongs for. So look forward to that. And like I said, Wednesday's episode will be out. Tommy and I will be picking our own brackets. When this goes live on YouTube later, we will have it's live on YouTube now. When we post the video to YouTube later, we will have a link in the description so you can join the Underground Sports Philadelphia Bracket Challenge with a chance to win some merch. Whoever
merch, there's going to be the top seed always gets the official locker room champion shirt, and we're working with our awesome partners over at W Energy, who are keeping us energized throughout all of March and year round to get some stuff hooked up for the people as well. So we'll get full-blown details out about that, right before tip-off. But it's in the link if you're watching live right now. The link's in the description. We've been tweeting it out from all of our podcast accounts. It's on our Instagrams. Go join that bracket challenge. I think last year we had close to 60 people in the bracket challenge, so we're just trying to top that and get more and more people in. It's free to join too. No entry fee, so get in. Click the link in the description if you're watching live and go join our bracket challenge.
All right. So, around the room, what is the most interesting first round matchup you guys saw? We'll start with you, Kyle.
I'm plugged into all these 5-12s. This is the best, I think overall, pound for pound, competition wise, for every 5-12 we had. There's years past where a 5-12 was it's obvious the 5 is the superior team and everything. This year, I feel like every 5-12 is a coin flip. It's gonna be just pound for pound. I think the best opening round entertainment we get.
Yeah, no, this whole bracket is just so good. I don't think that any of the. I don't think there's a team in this tournament that doesn't deserve to be here. It is very rare that I say that, but I think I don't agree with some of the seedings. But I do think that every team in this bracket deserves to be here. I think that the games are all very interesting matchups. I'm very mad at the committee for putting a literal Saw movie in Duke's bracket. But I guess it makes for interesting basketball at least.
That's great.
So, okay, I still haven't found a bracket, but I do have a list of every matchup.
I just found one.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it's the images are super small. Fox College Hoops tweeted it.
Fox College Hoops. All right. You said it's on Twitter?
Yeah, at CBB on Fox.
Okay.
As this Rochester team continues to emerge in the East.
I think Providence, Kentucky is going to be a good matchup too.
Yeah, that's a fun matchup.
Okay, yeah. All right, I got the bracket up now. Okay. All right. Here we go. Game by game, we're going to go through and talk about who is going to win. We'll skip over the first one. Number 1 overall seed. Alabama's not 2018 Virginia. They're going to run away with that one. We all know how that's going to end. But now we get right into it. Maryland, West Virginia, 8-9 matchup. What are our thoughts?
So gross.
What are our thoughts there? One of them is gross for other reasons.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that Iowa-Auburn game.
I think I'm leaning Maryland in that game, but I think it's going to be super close.
I'm leaning West Virginia.
Yeah, me too, Deej.
I think
I like the Big 12 just a tad bit more, especially this year.
Yeah. No, here's Tom and I were talking about this a couple episodes ago, where the Big 12, we feel like they always underachieve in the tournament. They've won the past 2 for sure. But the quality and depth of teams that they've sent over the past several years, only to have maybe 1 or 2 of them reach the second weekend. That is the only drawback I have, which is why I'm leaning Maryland. West Virginia is definitely the more battle-tested team. They're probably the better defensive team, and they're probably the more physical team. but I don't know. This just screams Maryland W to me for some reason. I couldn't tell you why. It is a straight gut feeling, and it's probably going to be wrong. So don't everybody go write West Virginia in on your bracket right now. 5-12, San Diego State, Charleston. This is really interesting to me. Like we've been saying, it's a lot of fun. I know next to nothing about Charleston. I know a little bit about San Diego State. I know that they are a slow tempo team. They've been dominating their conference for years. They are the 10th ranked defense in the country according to Ken Baum. So Charleston is going to have their work cut out for them. They're going to have to find creative ways to score the basketball. Charleston's ranked 70th in offense and 75th in defense. So as good as this matchup looks on paper, I think this might be the furthest apart of all of our 5-12 matchups. I think SDSU runs away with this one. I would love to see Charleston win, but
this feels like one of those games that it'll be close at halftime, and then San Diego State will make the necessary adjustments that they're going to need to win, and then they'll just play that lockdown defense, and then they'll be able to kind of pace the game that they want it to be. And
it's going to be a style adjustment.
Yeah.
Because I made this point to Tommy once about just the way different styles go across certain conferences. Like when you get used to playing a team every year, that's why you'll see we'll watch the Champions Classic where Kansas, Kentucky, MSU, Duke, they all play each other every year, and then you're like, okay, these teams, they're heavyweights, they're playing with each other. Everyone thought MSU was a top 5 team in the country after 2 weeks at the beginning of the season. And then they get into conference play and you see when teams are studying you as hard as they are, as my dad loves to say, at this point in the season, everybody's got film on everybody else. But once you get on that court and you see different styles of basketball, Charleston probably plays a different tempo, different type of offense than anything SDSU's seen all year, and vice versa. So it's going to be a player's game, 100%. But I'm going to side with the way better defense in that game. 4-13 matchup, Virginia Furman.
Stellar season you guys have been having. So here in Georgia.
I got Furman. I'm feeling that's a weird
Really?
I'm feeling it's a weird upset.
That's another one of those games similar, I think, to that 5-12 where it could get off to Furman's in it. They're within 3 or 4 going into halftime, and then Virginia makes those Virginia adjustments and comes out on top in the second half.
Well, here's my problem with Virginia is much like Tennessee, they can go completely blank on offense sometimes. Their offense is much better this year than it has been in years past. They've actually reached 80 points several times, which is a miracle for Tony Bennett
them
run
one of those
teams.
Congratulations certificates that you would get in elementary school for actually
Right.
accomplishing the bare minimum.
Yeah, but they're only 25th in defense, which isn't bad. Obviously, when there's 400 teams, but it is not as good of a defense as we're used to seeing from Virginia. So then I can't even find Furman on Ken Palm. They're probably somewhere in the top 100 though. Where are you? All right, I don't see him anywhere. But that could be all it takes though. Is one little lull. One 6-minute segment where Virginia goes over from the field and they score 4 points off foul shots. If Furman can keep the game close in the first half and then take a late lead, I could totally see this being one of the seminal upsets of the tournament. And we all know Virginia's got that kind of track record where they are very capable of losing games that they should not lose.
Yeah. Yeah. That very much exists.
All right. We didn't really.
Lasagna looks so good.
Guys, totally focused on dinner right now. All right, we'll try and go a little faster through these because we still got so many games to go through. So DJ can get to dinner.
No, that was not what that was at all.
No, you're good. You're good. All right, so next matchup is Creighton NC State. I didn't really get to touch on this one when they revealed it. I think this is a hands down lock. Creighton wins. NC State is very, very wishy washy. Creighton has been. I doubted them earlier in the season, but they've been very, very good lately. They're high scoring offense. They're very good at making adjustments. NC State has been on a bit of a downswing. I know that they've got some really good wins on the year, but as much of a homer as I am, the ACC just wasn't it outside of like 3 teams.
Yeah.
So, and just so everybody knows, this is not a Louisville hoodie. This is not a Louisville hoodie.
It's an Arizona hoodie.
The college that I played D3 ball at is the Cardinals. All right.
You just wanted to find a way to drop that in there. You just wanted to find a way to drop in that you played.
No. Trust me. Trust me. Plattsburgh is. As much as I love my school, Plattsburgh's not anything to write home about this year. So the fewer people that know that this season happened, the better. So, all right, moving on. Baylor, UC Santa Barbara, 3-14 matchup. I know next to nothing about UC Santa Barbara, and I'm very low on Baylor, but I don't think that UC Santa Barbara is, was it 2015 Yale?
Yeah.
The Torian Prince game.
The 4-13s this year
are
awful. They're terrible all around.
So I think we can all write Baylor into this one. But that will be an interesting matchup with Creighton in the second round. I do think that will be an interesting matchup with Creighton in the second round. Missouri, Utah State. Missouri is one of those teams that I think is overachieved. They snuck into the top 25 late off a couple of good wins in a tough conference in the SEC. Utah State, a lot of people were arguing for them to not be in the tournament. I think they're deserving. You know, they've got a solid record, but they definitely haven't played anybody like Missouri. So this might be one of those games where the seedings are farther apart than the actual numbers.
Okay.
I like to write Mizzou into that one.
Who are they playing? I don't know.
I like Mizzou there.
Yeah.
I don't see much.
Missouri's always on my do not pick list. They have
Yeah,
Why?
that's what I was gonna say.
They have screwed me every single year. It's either like I'll pick them thinking like they're gonna, advance at least a round, and then they get absolutely embarrassed. And they
lost the 15-2 game a while back. They lost the 15-2 game. What was it, Norfolk State or something like that?
Yeah.
And ever since then, they are like automatic, all for the brand, glued in to that 8-9 matchup forever. They are a perennial 8-9 team.
Right. So they overachieved. They're a 7 this year.
Yeah.
Then the final game in the South Quadrant first round, Arizona-Princeton. This is, if I had to rank potential for 15-2 upsets, this would be number 2. I think number 1 is Vermont-Marquette. And then potential Vermont-Marquette, Princeton over Arizona, UCLA, and Texas. They're not losing. Neither UCLA or Texas is losing. It could happen to Marquette. It could happen to Arizona. But I don't like this. I don't like the upset potential here as much as I like the upset potential with Marquette. So I'd pencil Arizona in to that game. They're probably also the best chance at anybody other than Bama coming out of that region. I think that now that we've talked through it, I think this is a supremely weak region, and it's Bama's to lose. There's nobody here. There's nobody in there better than Bama that I think matches up well with them. Arizona has the best shot, but they've got to get there. So and they have folded at times. during the season.
They're another team too, just like perennially will be on everyone's radar as a top, 4 seed or whatever to go Elite 8, Final 4, and they'll always fall short.
Yeah, exactly. Except that one year they had Derek Williams and they shouldn't have beat Duke, but they did.
Yep.
Hate Derek Williams. Anyway, moving on to the East. It's just so maddening how he was so good for that one game and then flames out as a number 2 pick. I'll never forgive him for that. So another 116 matchup. Purdue will play the winner of Texas Southern and Farley Dickinson. I almost want to entertain the idea of a 1 seed going down again, just because I think Purdue is so inconsistent. And
say if there was a 1 seed, it would be Purdue.
Yes, this year it would be. It's not going to be. They're going to win by 25, but. What do you say?
Are they though?
That big boy in the paint, bro. He ain't moving. He's gonna go at least Sweet 16 at least.
Look, dude, that's what I said earlier. The whole game plan for Purdue is to let him get 30 and 16. All you have to do is defend shooters and you win.
Or get him in foul trouble.
That too.
Oh yeah, you got.
So that's the thing. This is definitely past this game. This is definitely the toughest region to predict, though.
I wouldn't even say past this game. This game is tough because if Texas Southern wins over FDU, I think this is a much tougher game for Purdue. Like, I think Purdue should be hoping for FDU to come out of that first 4 matchup over Texas.
Oh, you think so? Yeah.
Especially since FDU wasn't even like they got in by virtue of another team not being able to qualify for the tournament, and they're 1 season removed from going 4-22.
Yeah. Like you want to see FDU at the next level, but Texas Southern, if they come out hot and then they're able to play that effective game plan of letting Edey do his thing and then pop off and shutting everyone else down, we could possibly see another 16 upset of 1.
Mm-hmm. It's the most likely of the 4. Memphis, Florida Atlantic. I'm leaning Memphis.
Florida Atlantic. I love Florida Atlantic in this.
I do. I really do like them. This is going to be a shootout. It's going to be a fun game to watch. I'm definitely circling this one as like one of the games that I plan on sitting all the way through. Because I can see
this
it.
Might be a stream game.
Yeah, this could be like a 102-98, just all out blister fest. Like it's going to be insane, and either team has a chance to beat Purdue in the second round. Either team,
100%,
for the sole reason that they can potentially outscore them.
That's all about like pacing too. Like you go into that game against Purdue and you kind of set the tone of like the pace of play that you want to play with.
Yep.
That's when you beat Purdue.
Yep. Exactly. So Florida Atlantic is, according to KenPom, the number 32 ranked offense, number 36 ranked defense. They're the 126th ranked tempo. You want to hear a crazy stat? Purdue's ranked 322nd in tempo. They have the number 7 offense.
Yeah, they probably take their
so
time.
strange.
I don't even know what to.
And I don't know, maybe I'm laying too much into the eye test here, but part of the reason I keep saying like let Edey eat and you'll beat Purdue by stopping everyone else is because I feel like they've been so inefficient on offense, but everything that those numbers tell me the exact opposite.
Yeah, I understand, but numbers lie. As much as people say numbers don't lie, numbers lie.
Great show.
They tell you a fabricated story. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
like those numbers point out that Purdue is a very effective offensive team, and they are when they are. When they're hitting, they're very effective. I think
Edey inflates the number.
Of course, but when you disrupt everyone else's rhythm, they're completely off, and they don't really have an offense whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's almost scary the way they can be on and off in those terms. Yeah.
I mean, there's only 2 guys on their team that I think that can consistently score as many points as Edey each night, Braden Smith and what's his name? Fletcher Lawyer. But like they can go so cold sometimes. So cold. So I honestly, I'm gonna have a lot of trouble picking the winner of this, like whoever wins Florida Atlantic, Memphis, and Purdue in the second round. So this is a game that we could talk about for like an hour straight. So I'm just gonna move it on. All right, let's get this over with. Duke Oral Roberts, 5-12 matchup, possibly the best 5-12 matchup. DJ's got something to say.
ORU, baby. ORU. ORU.
Mouth.
Why? Give me some logical reasoning behind ORU.
When we look at their conference and what is it that they play in? Is it the Ohio? No, not the Ohio Valley. I know which one it is. Dude.
I forget off the top of my head.
I always forget. It's the one that has like Morehead State and stuff in it.
Summit League.
League.
Now that conference is always tough because it has like Murray State, Morehead State.
Yep.
Like
It's a deep conference for mid majors.
Deep conference, and those the team that comes out of there is normally one of the better mid major teams to come out. And we talked about how good their offense is.
Yep.
They're shooters too.
Yeah.
And if they're getting open shots, they're going to hit them.
Well, here's the thing, though.
And that's what makes it tough. Is Duke is very good defensively.
Exactly.
But does Duke come in knowing that and kind of being lackluster? You're playing Oral Roberts as Duke. Does Duke ever? That's what worries me about Duke is I've seen even this year, Duke hasn't – it doesn't look like they're always focused. And when you're playing a team like Oral Roberts in the tournament, they're focused.
Mm-hmm.
Their season's on the line every time, and they know that they're here to play. If Duke comes in the slightest bit focused, even for 5 minutes, it could throw off the whole game. And
you're not wrong.
And that's kind of what has me leaning Oral Roberts is they're going to come ready to play from the first whistle. And if they're not ready, they can just run away with it.
You're not wrong about anything you said, but I think that you're describing a Duke team from 4 weeks ago. I don't think that that's the Duke team that is there now. They are like 11 or 12-2 in their last since they lost to who was it? Since they beat UNC the first time. They're like 11 or 12-2. And it should be only one loss because I don't know if any of you saw the game at Virginia. Duke should have won that in regulation. That was like the ACC straight up. I'm not even being a homer. The ACC said, no, we messed up. We absolutely messed up. Duke, they should have shot the free throws, won in regulation. I think not getting that call took the wind out of their sails, and Virginia just punched them in overtime. So I think that the biggest obstacle for Duke is championship hangover. Like, they just won the ACC. That was super emotional, especially Shire winning in his first year. With all the adversity and like this Duke team was counted out more than any Duke team I think since like Greg Paulus was a point guard. So I think that if they can refocus and understand that it's cool to win the ACC, but that's not what you don't go to Duke to win the ACC. Like, and those guys know that. Also, Duke will far and away be the best defensive team Oral Roberts has seen in possibly 5 years.
That's also very accurate.
Like, the scariest thing about Duke is their lineup is Jeremy Roach, 6'1", Tyrese Proctor, 6'5", Mark Mitchell, 6'8", Filipowski and Derek Lively, both 7'1", and they can all switch everything. Derek Lively might be the most agile, best rim protector in the entire country. It took him a while to figure that out, but like, he is so quick. Like, if you watch Duke play defense, they will force guys baseline, and Lively will be on the opposite side of the paint, and the other guy will be about to enter the paint. He'll still wall up. He can cover so much space in one step, which is the biggest thing that Duke's got going for them, is how well Lively protects the rim. Teams are going to have to be forced to hit their threes to beat Duke in this tournament. So if a team gets hot, that's when Duke loses. But you will not beat them attacking the paint. And that's why Oral Roberts is a tough matchup, because they are a scoring team. They're a shooting team. So it is a toss-up, but I am going to lean Duke just because I don't think that Oral Roberts has played a team that's as athletically and physically gifted as Duke all year, and I just think that they can't make up that difference with just pure volume shooting alone. Tennis. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I could see that. I just like you mentioned in terms of teams that can shoot the three. Or in the pool of teams now in the 68, Oral Roberts has got to be in the top 10, if not the top 5.
I think, yeah, for sure.
Full team shooting.
Let's see.
Alabama's obviously up there. They can shoot three. Trying to think of who else off the top of my head. For sure, Virginia can shoot the three.
A little bit.
There's not many teams that can really shoot the three. But Oral Roberts, if they can make it through this test, I feel better about Duke moving forward. But this is a great first test for them in that terms of running into a team that can shoot.
It's the KenPom numbers make this actually like a really good matchup. Duke is the 42nd ranked offense, and they're like so. I think it was it top 40 offense and top 25 defense, or the reverse is like the last 20 national champions had those ranks in KenPom.
I thought it was like both.
It was. I can't remember. It's either a top 40 offense and a top 25 defense, or a top 25 offense and a top 40 defense. I think it's the first one. I think it's top 40 offense, top 25 defense.
Yep.
So Duke's right on that edge. They're 42 offense, 24 defense. And this might actually be like, if the numbers can be believed, as we know, we just discussed they can't. Oral Roberts is the 23 ranked offense. So that's as close of a matchup as you can get. It's gonna be very interesting. But they are an outside. They're the 107th defense. So, and Duke has been shooting the ball almost 40% from three over the past 3 weeks. So we're talking about shooting teams having to beat Duke, but Duke is also a shooting team. So it does go both ways. As much as I would love to keep talking about Duke, we should move this along a little bit because I know this game we're going to talk about for about 3 seconds because I can't stand them. Tennessee, Louisiana. I hate Tennessee. I hate them. They play such good basketball sometimes that it does not you literally can't explain the lapses they have on offense. It upsets me, and I don't want to pick them, but I'm going to.
Yeah, they're one of those teams that, like, you'll pick them to advance past the first weekend, and then after that, it's kind of just a crapshoot, just depending on who else advances in their side of the bracket.
So, I'm going to move right on just because I'm going to give myself a headache if I think about this too much more. And the next matchup is actually really good. Kentucky, Providence in a 6-11 game. Now, Tom has had Kentucky as a Final Four pick all year, and we actually redid our Final Four picks a couple weeks ago. Now that we've watched the teams and stuff, because we hadn't talked about them since our preseason episode, and he's stuck with it, and he still thinks that they're going to go. I don't think if they make it out of this game, they're not making it out of this region. This is such a stacked region.
Yeah.
I'm sure, Margo, you had many suitors.
I think this is, like you said when it was all revealed, like this is the most stacked region.
Wait a minute,
Across,
by far.
top to bottom, by far.
By far. I said when they revealed it that there were probably 8 teams that could win this region, and I'm going to go through and see if I can name all of them. Purdue, Duke, Kentucky, Kansas State, Michigan State, Marquette, and I'll be honest with you, I'd throw Memphis in there.
Yeah,
I would throw Memphis. It would have to be. I would have to be a thing where everything broke their way. But they 100. I watched them play Houston today, and they dismantled them. I know they didn't have Marcus Sasser. I don't know if Houston was winning with him either. It would have been a much closer game. I don't know if they were winning though. Memphis can compete with anybody. But they have a very tall test because they're going to have to go through an absolute gauntlet. But going back to the game, I think Kentucky wins. I think Providence is another one of those teams that benefited from home court. in their conference this year. They went, I don't know if they went undefeated, but they lost maybe only 1 or 2 games at home all year. And the Big East was not exactly the power that there are good teams in it. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like the Big East has been better than it was this year. Or maybe I'm just trying to convince myself of that because now that I think about it, it really has just been kind of Nova and everybody else. And now we've got multiple high single-digit seeds from the Big East. So maybe I'm just like an idiot. But it's an interesting game, but I think Kentucky comes out with the win.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that, like, you know, with the Big East, like, it has been so Villanova dominant for the last decade, pretty much, with a couple, you know, lapses here and there. So now it's like,
and if their turnaround says anything, it's going to be like that again.
Yeah, and everyone's got to, like, this year in particular, everyone's just kind of got to, like, readjust and, like, see what the Big East actually is outside of Villanova.
Absolutely. Kansas State, Montana State. Can't say I've watched much Montana State this year, but I have seen Kansas State play several times against TCU, Kansas, Texas. Every time I come away impressed. Kansas State is one of those teams where you can punch them and they will punch you back. It might take them a second to get back into it, but it is very rare that they get blown out. And when they do, it's just because the other team was that good that night. You know, like for example, they got blown out by TCU, and then 2 weeks later they blew out TCU. You know, and they went punch for punch with Kansas. I think they split the regular season series. They came out of the hardest conference in America as a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. That tells you everything you need to know about how good this team is.
Yep.
Sorry, Montana State, but your tourney run ends right away.
Thank you, buddy.
Michigan State USC seems like a really, really interesting matchup.
Nope.
Yep.
Nope.
UFC all the way. I don't see Michigan State winning this one at all.
I agree with you.
And there's no bias there or anything. It's just in terms of we've talked about like inconsistency.
Yeah,
in
massively.
And Michigan State is probably the most inconsistent team in the Big Ten, right behind Michigan. Because Michigan was easily the most inconsistent team. And
I think you could make that argument about 6 or 7 teams in that conference.
The conference was so inconsistent this year. It's just
like you had no idea.
That's what
I would add Illinois, Indiana, and Purdue to that conversation.
Maybe even Rutgers.
Yeah.
Maybe even Rutgers. But you're not used to that. You know what I'm saying? You're not used to that. Like, we're so used to being able to be beat by anybody. But that doesn't mean everybody was inconsistent.
Yeah.
Right.
There were just times where a team showed up and they played a little bit better that day and they got the best of you.
Yep.
This year, teams just weren't showing up, and other days they were.
Yeah, and like so many of the teams just, you know, I've been complaining about it the whole stream, is they just have lapses where they forget how to play basketball. Like I went to the Michigan State game in Ann Arbor a couple weeks ago for when they honored the 2013 runner-up national title runner-up team. And Michigan State dominated for 35 minutes. It was a close game, but Michigan State was completely in control for 35 minutes. Michigan did just enough to hang around, and then for the last 5 minutes, all of a sudden, Kobe Buffkin went God mode, and Michigan State forgot what offense was. It was ridiculously, it was fun to watch as a Michigan fan. It was hard to watch as someone who thought that Michigan State could cover 5.5.
That is even more.
So, if there's one thing I've learned over the last month, it's never bet on Michigan State to cover anything because they will screw me. I told Tommy, I told some of our listeners, I don't know if I told you guys, I had Michigan State +5 against Iowa. The game where they were up 93-79 with 2.5 minutes left. They lost that game by 6.
That's
in
pain,
overtime.
bro. That's pain.
That is the worst beat I've ever had. I don't know if I'll ever top it.
And that right there was the game that I decided Michigan State wouldn't do that well this year.
Yeah.
That game right there. I was like, there's no way this team is actually going to achieve what people think they will.
You know what made it even worse? About 24 hours later, Arizona State hit the half-court shot.
Oh, no. No.
I did not have a good weekend that weekend. I made up for it this weekend. But that was that weekend.
Yeah, that hurt for a few weeks.
So, Marquette and Vermont. Now, I said it earlier. this is the most likely matchup for me for a 15-2 upset. And I'm going to tell you why. Marquette, I love Marquette. A big Dwayne Wade fan. I will always have a soft spot in my heart for Marquette because of that. Shaka Smart, great coach. He does not perform in the tourney. Never has. Outside of the one run with VCU, where he landed himself a Power 5 job for the rest of his life, he has been maddeningly inconsistent. You can just ask Tommy. No, he was probably doing backflips in the front yard holding a can of Miller Lite when they hired Shaka like all those years ago, and he
was probably doing the same thing when Shaka left.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But as high powered offense as they are, again, it's a team where I just don't fully trust them the way that I would trust like Bama's offense. You know, I mean, like Bama is one of those teams where they can afford to have like a 5-minute drought because in the next 5 minutes they're going to put up 27 points. You know, and that's, but I can't say that about most teams. And Marquette is really good. They're really good offensively. They're passable defensively. Vermont though, they just have that vibe, and they've done it before. They've scared. I don't know if they have any tournament wins recently, but I know they've scared the living crap out of teams way better than them on several occasions in past tournaments. And this feels like one of those games where they will do that, if not win it.
Ooh, win it.
You boys got to bounce, but it was great to be on here. Great talking with everybody. And, let's get some March Madness going this week.
Hell yeah. Thanks for coming, Patty.
All right. Peace out, yo.
All right. We still have another half of the bracket to go through. We'll try and go through this one a little bit faster. Houston, Northern Kentucky. We all know how that one's going to end. Marcus Sasser's going to come back. Houston's going to go up 25 points in the first half. Like I said, I think this is Northern Kentucky's first bid, at least in a very long time. So great stepping stone for them. Hopefully, maybe they can make it back next year and see if they can do some damage. But yeah, I'm sorry, you drew the worst matchup you possibly could.
Yep.
That's another team that has a great mascot, though.
Yeah, the Norse.
They're technically Vikings, but they're the Northern Kentucky Norse. Like that's just so that's the fun part too about March Madness and seeing all these schools that you typically don't see is finding the underrated mascots.
Absolutely. All right, here we go.
This is their first tournament appearance since 2019.
2019. Wow, I didn't know it was that recent.
And then
was 2019 their first appearance in 40 years?
So 2017 was their first as a D1.
Oh, so that's why I've never heard of them. I figured they were just one of those schools that didn't make an appearance for 40 years. Okay, so
they were D2 for the longest time, and then 2017 was their first D1.
That makes sense. Obviously they haven't done anything yet because I don't remember.
They were a 15 seed in 2017 and lost to Kentucky 79-70, and then 2019 they were a 14 seed, lost to Texas Tech 72-57.
Okay, so they've done all right. They lost to Texas. 2019 was the year Texas Tech went to the title game. Yes,
I think so. Yeah,
they lost. They're the ones who lost to Virginia.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's not anything to sniff at. You gave them a fight.
The Zaire Smith team.
Yep. All right. Yeah, we all know that this one is going to be unwatchable. Iowa-Auburn. This is the one game I'm just really not looking forward to.
That is the one game that if you have to clean the house, go run some errands, do it during that game because it's not going to be a fun time.
No, you're gonna
That's like a punishable offense. We're gonna tie you to this chair and force you to watch these two teams play.
That's if you lost your fantasy football league. That's the punishment you have to do.
You have to watch it. You have to, and you can't look away. So
last weekend, my family hosted our annual AAU basketball tournament. We always hosted the first weekend of March. We used to use it as a fundraiser for like our high school teams back when my brother and I and my sister were in high school. We'd use it to get like warm-ups and shoes for the upcoming year. And then after we all graduated, we just kind of kept running it because it was fun. It was a way for our family to stay like in the basketball community up here. And so this was the 15th year that we've run it. I used to 4 or 5 years ago, I was a referee for the local area, and I've stopped doing it just because I hate dealing with parents. They're making youth sports like just awful.
Oh yeah.
for no lack of a for lack of a better term, but like it's just awful. So I refused to ref, but I had to jump in because a snowstorm hit us, and some of the refs couldn't make it in time, so I had to actually jump in with my whistle and dust off the glasses.
Did you have flyaway pants too, ready to go?
Yeah, exactly. So I reffed this one game between, I think it was like a 10th grade girls game. And I think one of the teams might have just been thrown together last second. They just had on a bunch of green t-shirts and they just wanted to play, which is fine. Like that's what the tournament's for, like for kids who want to play. But I can say with full honesty that it might have been the single ugliest game of basketball I have ever witnessed in my entire life. Nobody on either team could handle the ball. Multiple missed layups. Lots and lots and lots of turnovers. I'm getting that vibe from this Iowa-Auburn game.
I was going to say, what's going to be worse, that game that you reffed or this Iowa-Auburn game?
And the only thing that gives me hope is Iowa's ability to shoot the ball. We don't know if that version of them is going to show up. If they do, this could very quickly become a blowout in Iowa's favor. I'm betting that it won't. And we're going to be sitting here to a 49-47 ugly finish.
Yeah. I completely was not even joking when I said this is going to be the first game TJ ever bets on, because this game just is like the guy from SpongeBob who yells like hoopla. He's yelling under. Under.
Yep. Yeah.
Sounds like a whole lot of under. This game is going to be so gross. I can't believe the committee like did that.
I mean, I can though.
I can, but it's like
the 8 and 9 are like the two teams that are like so similar that you don't know who to give the 8 and who to give the 9, and this is the perfect example of that. They're just so bad.
This is like the committee.
This is one of the worst 8-9s we've seen in a very long time.
The committee doing this is like that Courage the Cowardly Dog clip that's been going around recently as a reaction video where it's like, yes, the camera loves your nastiness. That's what this game is.
Yep. Which stinks because the next game is actually pretty good, Miami and Drake. Miami is one of the best offensive teams I think I've seen. Like, they took it. When I was watching the Duke-Miami game in the semifinal 2 days ago, I was scared, like, so the whole game. Duke led the whole game, and I was terrified the whole game. Just mainly because in the back of my mind was the 23-point blowout at Miami. And the fact that Isaiah Wong just kept, like, contorting his body in midair every time it seemed like Duke was going to go on a run and flipping the ball in the basket to stop the momentum. And I was just like, you got to be kidding me. So Miami is the 12th ranked offense, but they're the 132nd ranked defense according to KenPom. They will not lose this game for the sole reason that they're probably going to put up 90 points. I love Drake. I think that they're a very good basketball team. They are 66th in KenPom. They actually have a solid defense at 44, but they do not have the ability to keep up with Miami's scoring. Even as bad as Miami's defense is, they just don't have the ability to keep up. I think this is the easiest 5-12 matchup to pick. As good as all these games are, I think this is the easiest one to pick, and it's going to be Miami. Actually, I kind of like this 4-13 matchup better than this 5-12 matchup in Indiana and Kent State. So last night I was out at the bar after the Duke Virginia game, and a friend of my family, her name is Mara. She used to be a graduate assistant coach for Stony Brook, and one of her colleagues on the team is now a coach at Kent State. And I was talking to her about sports betting just went live in Massachusetts on Friday, I think it was. And so my brother lives in Boston, and he and I were swapping picks because he hasn't bet in a while. I haven't really been into betting in a while. I think I took like 4 or 5 months off. Once baseball season ended, I didn't bet for a while. And so we were swapping picks, inviting each other to FanDuel, getting all the free bets and stuff. And one of our picks was Toledo -5 or -0.5. I needed him to win by a point against Kent State. And we talked about it a little bit, and I was like, okay, yeah, I feel really good about this game. I bet on that, and I bet on the over in that game. The over hit, thank God, because Kent State just annihilated Toledo. Like every time Toledo made a little bit of a run in the second half, and then Kent State pulled away again. And I was telling Mara about this at the bar last night, and she looked at me. She's like, "Oh, I would have told you to bet on Kent State. I've known this." And I'm like, "You paid attention?" She's like, "No, my friend works there. I would have told you to bet on Kent State." And I was like, "Why didn't you tell me this earlier?" Obviously, there is some voodoo magic going on, so that you and I could have this conversation. That is why Kent State won this game.
Yes.
But they're like people, I think, sleep on the MAC conference. Buffalo, Toledo, Ohio U, Kent State, all those teams, that's a very good mid-major conference. Mm-hmm. And Indiana is another one of those teams, as we've been talking about with the Big Ten all year, that is maddeningly inconsistent. Just maddeningly inconsistent. They could very, very well lose this game.
That
honestly,
wouldn't shock me as an upset whatsoever.
I might pick Kent State in my official bracket. I might. I just don't like Indiana that much. Trace Jackson Davis is good, but it's kind of like the same problem with Zach Edey, where you can let him eat and the rest of the team can't do anything.
Yep.
So, I'm kind of on Kent State for this one.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Next one, Iowa State plays the winner of Mississippi State and Pitt. That's a weird game.
I hate Iowa State.
I do too. I really do. But I don't think they'd lose to either of those teams. I think it's a bit of a toss-up. I think I lean more Mississippi State just because I think Pitt overachieved this year. Mississippi State played in a better conference. They played better competition. Whatever Pitt throws at them isn't going to be anything they haven't seen before. So I think it's going to be Iowa State, Mississippi State. But Mississippi State's not good enough to compete with Iowa State. As much of a dumpster fire as I think Iowa State is, and they still can turn it up. But the only thing that I hesitate with is that, I've been talking about how low I am on Baylor, and part of the reason is because they've been losing. They lost so many times to Iowa State in the past 2 weeks. I think they've lost twice to Iowa State in the past 2 weeks. And I don't think that Iowa State should have won either of those games.
Yikes.
Like, they can lock in on defense, but there's something about this team that I just gnaws in the back of my mind. Like, why are they here? Why did they win games? And so I think they'll win this first round, and then they're going to get slapped by Xavier in the second round. Xavier's just way too good on offense. And they just had their offensive dud against Marquette, so I don't think they're going to do it 2 games in a row. So obviously that trickles into the next game. I've got Xavier beating Kennesaw State. Congrats to Kennesaw State. I think they announced it was the first time they've ever made the tournament. That was it was really cool for them, but they did draw an offensive juggernaut in the first round. So penciling in Xavier for that one. Any thoughts from you guys?
The only thing is, with a team like that, is Xavier still has to play because they're going to come out with a lot of excitement.
Look who it is.
What up, Stevie Mac?
How we doing, folks?
How we doing, Steve?
Yeah,
good. Good news is the leak in my bathroom is not caused by me. The bad news is this bracket low-key sucks.
Oh, I disagree.
Let's talk
What?
about no.
None of us. What?
No, it's great in the best of ways and worst in the worst of ways. So I don't want to jump in here, but because I want you guys to continue as you're probably discussing something. But my issue is that, first of all, when looking at the grand scheme of things, now I'm a Quinnipiac graduate. Shout out to the MAC, the true MAC, the MAAC, not the bullshit MAC with Toledo and all those the weird.
And we just gave that conference their flowers.
We
too.
just gave them their flowers.
The MAC
Sorry.
is in my
You give
town.
them the flowers. I'll bury them. What is it?
I'm gonna get
Oh
you.
my god.
I'm gonna get you, Mac.
All
The
right,
real
fine,
Mac
fine.
is here.
My big thing is, my big thing in regards to this bracket, as I was getting kind of playing it through as my plumber was checking out my bathroom. A couple of things I've noticed that for the most part, the committee got a lot of things right, but they really kind of overstacked some of these regions, in my opinion. You look at, for example, the Midwest, right? Underrated, big, phenomenal, despite their, to a degree, runs from UConn and Providence, and now Marquette's on this miraculous, ridiculous run to the top 5 of the nation. They're loading up a conference where, despite Houston's, did they lose to Memphis today, who was getting very frisky all day long? Houston's by far,
they did.
Houston's by and large the number one team in the country. They should be here, obviously. Hosting a region though where you have Indiana, wildly inconsistent, still is a incredibly sound team, has really good defensive metrics, and is actually able to defend the ball and keep pace of play quite well. I think Iowa State is a solid team. Xavier is really good. I wouldn't sleep on any of the schools in the Big Ten. We've known in the past the Big 12 and the Big Ten dominate this tournament. I don't know. There's a lot of things where, to make things more balanced, I can clearly find you 2 winners from the bottom part of the bracket. The top part, I think, is overloaded and will be a talking point for the next few weeks.
I think we talked about the stacked regions a little bit earlier too. We think that the East is probably the most stacked, just in terms of teams that could possibly win. We named 8 different teams that could come out of there, and there's a legitimate argument to be made for each one of them. The Houston bracket, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No, I think you are right. Looking at it now, the East is beyond loaded. I mean, look, again, I am a firm believer in narratives and past performances, and I basically religiously think Ken Palm all day long. If you look at
that's all I've been talking about the whole stream.
Ken Palm is like, at this point, it's like, what's the number? It's like every team who's ever won in the history of Ken Palm has been within the top 30,
top 40 offense, top 25 defense.
There you go. So, and what? There's 7 teams, I believe, in the East that fit the criteria. I think
something like that.
Maybe the exception to the rule here is Kentucky, because they've been kind of mad defensively the whole year. And the SEC also hasn't been as dominating as it's been in the past.
Right.
Like, kind of nuts to, like, realistically, Purdue, good team, but you're aligned too much on your core 2 players. One of them happens to be a big who can't actually stretch the floor. So what are you going to do? So I think you're right. The East is certainly a loaded conference. Also, back to the Midwest, like Colgate, right? A 15 seed. I thought Colgate 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago. Yeah. They lost to Arkansas. I bet against Arkansas straight up on the money line. I was like, Colgate is going to shoot the lights out. They went like 22% from 3. Choked it out.
Yep.
Colgate still has the same exact roster. There's more people who go to Colgate than actually live in Hamilton, New York. This team is legitimate, and they might very well give Texas a run for their money. So something else to look at. If you want to look at 15-2 upsets, and anything's plausible. You saw St. Peter's last year.
Yeah. No, I'm cold on the Texas and UCLA 2-15 games. I think that the more likely 15-2 upsets are on the other side of the bracket. I think that Texas is too good, and they're playing their best basketball right now. They just shut down one of the best offenses in the country and made Kansas look silly for 40 minutes yesterday. So I think that Rodney Terry has done probably the best coaching job in the country, given with what he's had to deal with all year. And I think that he's going to have that team ready to play. Colgate they'll definitely punch above their weight. It'll be a game, but I don't think it's a game that Texas will ever not be in control of. So I could see them it being a single digit win, like, 78, 71 or something like that. But I don't think it'll be a game where Texas is ever in danger. But anyway, Steve, before you got here, we were going through each game and going through the ins and outs of who we thought was going to win this, who we thought was going to win that. And we stopped when you popped in here, we were talking about Xavier and Kennesaw State. And I think we kind of cemented that our pick would be Xavier right there, just because they have some. They're one of those teams where they've got a high-powered offense and they have some clunkers, but they just had a clunker, and I don't think they'll have two in a row. They just absolutely didn't have it against Marquette, and Kennesaw State just doesn't have the weapons to keep up with them. So we're gonna move on to Texas A&M versus Penn State, which is one of the most interesting 7-10 matchups in this bracket for sure. A&M has been on quite a bit of a tear. So has Penn State, as we saw today. I completely wrote off Penn State during their game today. I was so tuned into Houston and Memphis, I didn't even notice they made the comeback. But then, as we all complained about before the show, they had one of the most abysmal final possessions I think we've ever seen in that last 3 seconds. So this is going to be, in my opinion, a close game. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was marred by the same type of controversial play calling that we saw today, just because of the two teams involved.
Absolutely. No, I think Penn State is again, Big Ten teams to dominate the tournament. Penn State, I'm going to relate everything to betting here because it's kind of like how I always gravitate towards March Madness. I was watching a guy who I usually watch every single week, and he was like, "Yo, Penn State plus 10.5 against Purdue." I'm like, this seems like an odd wide number. Why are we going at it where we aren't blowing the doors off of Purdue? And I was kind of shocked, but if you look over their last few games, I mean, the Big Ten tournament itself, knocking out Illinois, Northwestern, and Indiana, like these are really rock solid teams for the most part. All of which are going to be going somewhere at some point in the tournament. Then you go up to Penn State to Purdue, and again we go back to this idea of you relying too much on Zach Edey trying to work his way in the paint. Penn State's has size, they have length. I personally, from watching him play for 3 years, Jalen Pickett is probably the best transfer pickup they could have gotten. He's been terrific for this team the entire year, and again, according to Ken Palm, top 40 team in both categories. I think there's no reason to not believe that Penn State has more than enough opportunity to take away a good game against a solid A&M team.
Yeah, no, honestly, I like Penn State in this matchup just because they have punched above their weight more than A&M has. A&M has gone on a streak right at the end right here. You know, make it to the SEC final. They had some good wins to close out the SEC the SEC conference season. But they didn't play, other than Alabama, they haven't really played the quality of teams that Penn State has had to play in the past couple of weeks. And A&M got destroyed the both times they played Alabama, and Penn State has been just played a 2-point game to one of the few teams that on a neutral floor I would say is able to compete with Alabama right now. So I think that Penn State is the team that's in better form. This is probably more of an 8-9 matchup than a 7-10 matchup, if I'm being completely honest, just in terms of how close the teams are together. But I think Penn State has the edge. They have that X factor. They have the ability to grind out games where they get down. So they just have a lot of momentum, I think, heading into this one, despite the loss today. Both teams lost today in their conference finals. So I do think that I lean Penn State for this one.
Honestly, not for nothing, when you look at both teams that occurred today, I mean, A&M had in my opinion, a much more difficult matchup again going against
by far.
Yeah. So when you look at it from the wider point of view, it's like, all right, who had the worst loss of the evening? I mean, clearly both teams are going to be hungry. They have plenty of time to get ready for this game. They'll come in prepped. But again, I agree. I think Penn State will be able to outman and be able to lock down a little bit better than an A&M team who kind of sort of, once again, we see these big time run teams come tournament time and come the conference tournaments particularly, maybe got a little too in over their heads.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Final matchup of the Midwest region, Texas Colgate. We kind of just went over that a little bit ago. So, DJ, I don't think you would have been here for this conversation. But,
Give me just 1 second.
Do we have early lines on this Colgate game? Because if it's like 14-15, I might take it.
I can check.
if it is, I would agree. So I do think that we all kind of penciled in Texas as the winner of that game, but it is going to be more interesting than maybe we let on initially.
Texas is minus 13.5.
Oh, give me it. Actually, 13. If it goes to 14, I'll take it.
All right. So final region, starting with Kansas versus Howard in the West region. As we have done so far, I think this is chalk. Nobody is Virginia this year. Kansas is going to win. They're very, very, very good, and Howard is kind of having a bit of a dream season right now. So going to have to wake up soon. The Arkansas-Illinois game, though, that 8-9 matchup is really, really interesting because if Illinois shows up, then it could be a good game. If they decide that they're just going to launch threes that aren't going in, Arkansas is going to win by 20. So it has all the makings of a heavyweight brawl, but we could very, very much just see Arkansas Floyd Mayweather their way through this game. Just packing the points on. No knockout punches are going to be thrown. You're going to watch Illinois beat themselves. But
that's hasn't that been the story the whole year, like you were saying, like against what was it, Nebraska? I think they shot under 22% from three. Penn State lost by 12 when they had the lead for 3/4 of the game. Lost to Ohio State again because of threes. Like between the inability to hold on to the basketball and take care of the basketball, on top of the fact that they simply just outplay themselves, which is kind of embarrassing. Especially like here, you look at.
Here's a stat that tells me everything I need to know about Illinois. I told Tom this at the podcast the other day. Illinois is like top 5 in the country for 3-point volume. Like 47% of their offensive possessions end in a 3-point shot. They only hit 32% of them. Literally live and die by the three.
Not to mention too, in terms of their adjusted abilities, I saw a TikTok the other day. How obviously when you measure out all the teams on basically through KenPom on a grid-based format, where obviously you have the 4 quadrants, Illinois ranks in the highest percentage of time of possession, but the lowest in terms of the ability to hold the basketball. So they're fast, they hold the ball, but they can't hold it for more than 5 seconds. What good is that? You're losing the ball. You're giving up 30 turnovers a game, and all those lead to transitional games. If you're playing a team who's either really good transitionally, good on the catch and shoot, you're done. You're toast.
Yeah, no, for sure. It has the potential to be almost as ugly as Iowa Auburn's going to be, but not quite. Very interesting 5-12 matchup following it though. St. Mary's VCU. Like I said earlier, I think I like this one the most as a 12-5 upset, especially having watched VCU the past couple of days. They are an excellent defensive team. Like I mentioned earlier in the stream, St. Mary's has a couple of good wins under the belt. They're always a consistent team, always a tournament team every year. But as we know, wins against Gonzaga this year do not mean what they have in the past 4 or 5 years. So I do think that VCU has a very, very good chance to win this game. And I also think that they have a very good chance to win the next game, whether they face UConn or Iona. So I'm probably penciling in VCU for my lock 12-5 upset because one of them is going to happen. I think this is my lock.
I agree with you there. I actually watched VCU play. I think it was Michigan early on in the year. They played. Oh God, it was one of those matchups at the Barclays Center for one of the early season tournaments. I was shocked by how good VCU was and how they were able to contain Michigan. The whole game, Juwan Howard looked lost. I'm sitting behind the bench, and he's flustered with how they were rotating. They were doing a really good job at controlling the 3 ball. Not to mention also St. Mary's, again, like you said, wins against Gonzaga aren't important. That whole conference has been putrid for I cannot tell you how long. My sister goes to Pepperdine, so I follow them a little bit. Between every single team in that conference, if it isn't St. Mary's and it isn't Gonzaga, then who is it? And traditionally, St. Mary's doesn't always get very far in the tournament when they even are a 12, 11, whatever happens to be seed, because of the fact that they simply don't match up well against these competitions.
They'll never get past the Sweet 16.
Exactly. So at some point, even if they do happen to get past this game, I think it'll be by the skin of their teeth. Second round will not look nearly as pretty.
Yep. Yeah, no, I mean, we shouldn't really be talking about it because they're not in the tournament. I think Michigan, they didn't figure out their offense until halfway through the year. They had a really good offense for the last couple of weeks, but I saw them play live against Ohio U in a game that went to overtime early in the season. That was just a really with 5 minutes in, my dad's across. He's sitting. He couldn't get us all seats together, so he's across the Chrysler Center on the other side. And I sent him a text. I was like, "Why is Michigan stacking 4 people on one side of the floor on the same block that Hunter Dickinson is on?" And they eventually switched away from that offense, and they started doing the zoom action where they put Hunter in the high post and let the guards cut off of each other and just kind of read it. But their floor spacing was just absolutely abysmal. And if they had figured it out earlier on and got a couple more wins earlier on, maybe we'd be talking about them in one of these games. But nope.
I think really quick, I'm just noticing this. I think it's really interesting, and I want to get your take here. St. Mary's, as we said earlier about teams that have the metrics to always win the tournament, according to KenPom, 40th in adjusted offense, 9th in adjusted defense. Is that a tale of the conference, or is that?
It's definitely part of it. It's definitely part of it.
So, is there something foreseeable that we could maybe be completely missing here?
I don't know. I like you said, the conference isn't great outside of those 2 teams. I mean, San Francisco did all right last year, but that was an outlier. The one thing I like about KenPom is how it is the adjustments. This is the reason that it's one of the most trusted brackets or ranking systems in college basketball, because it takes into account how strong your opponent is. It takes into account how fast you play. Like, it's not just like raw numbers. It is I'm not a math guy by any means. There's a reason that I majored in English and gave up on math classes when I was a sophomore in college. But the metrics make sense, and the way that he weighs certain things, I think is how they should be weighed. He weighs level of competition a lot more heavily than I think a lot of rankings do. So it is interesting to see how high St. Mary's is, but they're on the cusp of those rankings. So yeah, technically, going by historical data, they are one of those teams that could win the national championship according to KenPom rankings.
And it's crazy because, again, sorry to cut you off here, but
no, you're good.
Ahead of schools like Marquette and Creighton and Baylor and Xavier, these are quality programs. Even like a Memphis, for example, more towards I think like an 8 ranked deficit. SEC schools, the American, the Big East, the Big 12, and all of a sudden the West Coast is somehow ranking ahead. I find it fascinating on how they, despite the lack of competition per se, outside of Gonzaga, who's top 10, of course, there really is none. Here, but you were saying.
No, I was just gonna say that I'm not sure exactly how those numbers got so high for St. Mary's, because I feel like even in the non-Gonzaga games, they weren't exactly blowing people out. So it is going to be an interesting matchup. I just think VCU, they have watching them the past 2 days, they have an energy about them that just screams like we're coming after whatever. They could be a 16 seed, and I think about penciling them into the next round just because they're a scary, scary defensive team. So that is, like I said earlier, that's my 12-5 lock. We're almost done here in the home stretch. Moving on to the 4-13 game, UConn versus Iona. Now, I said this earlier when they announced it. This game has Tom Cernchia written all over it. He has been high on UConn all year. And Rick Pitino is we talked about Texas is probably going to keep Rodney Terry. Now, I mean, the guy just won Coach of the Year. He's done a fantastic job at UT. But we did talk about, who he would want if Texas decided not to keep Terry, and Pitino was obviously at the top of his wish list. So we do love this matchup just for the personal storylines more than the actual game itself. It's going to be a very interesting game. Iona, since Patino's been there, they've been consistently the top of the MAC. They got beat by St. Peter's last year, but they're right back in it this year. They drew a very difficult matchup, especially because regionally they're very close to UConn. So this is going to be one of those games where it's almost going to be probably a home game for UConn. I think UConn will travel. Iona's obviously close at Albany, but I think UConn will travel more. Tom brought this up. Like, what if they get plugged into Madison Square Garden or whatever? Because that's like basically a UConn home game. Like it's going to be the same in Albany, I think.
That's where I find this fascinating. So, of course, I was able to watch Iona for 4 years. You want to Quinnipiac, and
yep.
I got a chance to see Rick Pitino up close. MAC tournament during COVID. No one's in the arena.
Yeah,
I have never seen somebody with more ferocity and intensity playing against teams that are 10 times inferior to his.
Yep.
And he treats it like it's Louisville in the Final Four. It's actually incredible. When I saw this matchup, I knew I had to come on and talk about it. And I'm so glad I got in at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
This actually might be an upset game. And for the sole reason that Rick Pitino exudes the energy that I just simply do not think UConn is ready for. Mm-hmm. They'll probably take off the chin. They'll say, all right, it's Iona, 4-13, we'll move on. I actually kind of disagree with you with the take of you go to MSG possibly, or you go to Albany, whatever it happens to be. Iona fans travel well. And not to mention, like, it's the first time in, I don't know, back when Tim Kluse was the head coach at Iona, probably 5 years ago was the last time that I can truly remember this. There were more Iona fans in the building for any game in the MAC than any of the home teams that you go see. Iona fans roll deep. They're really passionate about their basketball team, and even now, they've won 14 in a row. There's even more momentum traveling in, and I think Albany is going to be the perfect spot for Iona to possibly pull off an upset. I'm not going to write it off quite yet. It's one of those like pencils. Maybe you leave it blank for now.
Yeah.
My goodness, there's something about Iona that just screams upset alert, and I'm not going to say last year's St. Peter's team means anything, because to be quite honest, it really doesn't. They had great players, but until tournament time, Doug Eddert was nobody, and then all of a sudden he started draining threes and signing deals with Buffalo Wild Wings. The whole team was Casey and Defo.
I was going to say, and Defo's the reason that team went anywhere.
Iona, though, has 5 players all in the top 200 in college basketball in offensive and defensive metrics. So who's to say they can't match up well enough against a UConn team? I think this is a game that disregard every ounce of history from the MAC. Iona could do something incredible this year.
Yeah, no, this is probably my favorite 13-4 matchup. I did mention before you got on the stream that I liked Kent State against Indiana as well, but I would rank this one right up there with them. Moving on to a very interesting matchup. So TCU, for those of you who haven't been in the stream since they got revealed earlier, I did mention that Eddie Lampkin, TCU's starting center all year, left the team last week after he alleged that head coach Jamie Dixon was racially abusive to him and other players in practice. Honestly, I thought that TCU was going to implode in the Big 12 tournament, and they actually pulled off a very impressive win against Kansas State. And then they were just overmatched in their game against Texas. So it's going to be interesting to see how well TCU does, because at the beginning of the year and for most of the year, I've been on TCU as a dark horse Final Four team, a potential national title contender. Mike Miles Jr. has been hurt a lot this year, and I think that if he was healthy, TCU would have 4 or 5 more wins. There are a couple of games that I don't think they lose if they have him on the floor. So I think a 6 seed is about right for how they finished. Maybe a little bit more than they deserve, 22-10, but they did play in the toughest conference in the country. And even with all the uncertainty around the program, with what's going on with Lampkin and these accusations against Dixon, I don't think that Arizona State or Nevada have what it takes to beat them on a neutral floor.
If there's one team going in that you wouldn't have if you're TCU, who is it?
Anybody from the Big 12. Because they've seen you all year. They know you.
I'm saying particularly in the matchup Nevada and Arizona.
I thought you meant just if they were probably Arizona State, just because yes, they have beaten good teams. They I mean, I talked about it earlier about how the bad beat I took once they hit the half court shot last week. But so Arizona State is the more likely challenge for TCU, but I don't think either of those teams, if TCU is playing its best basketball, really holds a candle to them. And I think honestly, I was looking at their pod of 4. I'd almost pencil them into the Sweet 16 now. I don't think Gonzaga is good enough defensively to keep up with to beat TCU, and I think TCU is good enough defensively to slow down Gonzaga. I don't think Gonzaga's number 1 KenPom offense ranking really means anything.
I like that. I totally agree. I've watched them in some games this year, and I felt like it just wasn't there, like it's been in the past. Like they're just not who they.
I think their game against Grand Canyon is going to be like 87-83. Gonzaga's going to win, but like
a crazy game.
It's just. Like we've said multiple times, this Gonzaga team is not Gonzaga teams of old. Which, now that I've said that, because I'm cursed, this is going to be the Gonzaga team that finally cuts down the net.
Could you imagine?
Which is funny though, because it's also the by far worst Gonzaga defensive team in 5 years, 6 years.
Yeah, by far. So, I mean, they're always a top 5 offense. We just expect that at this point. But like, they let teams hang around now, and if you let TCU hang around, Mike Miles Jr. is going to make you regret it. He's just that good. He's a special, special player. So moving on from the TCU game, Gonzaga Grand Canyon. We just talked about it a little bit. Go a little bit more in depth here. Gonzaga should win this game. It is not going to be as clean cut as most Gonzaga first round games have been in the past. Grand Canyon is a very good offensive basketball team. And as Steve just pointed out, Gonzaga is an abysmal defensive basketball team.
Very bad.
So it's going to be close throughout the whole game. I think Gonzaga might have spurts where they'll push it to like 10, 12, maybe 14-point leads. Grand Canyon will come clawing back a little bit. This game's going to finish in the upper 80s in points each for each team. If the over is 150 or lower, take it. It's more of an interesting game than I think we give it credit for. But at the end of the day, the number 1 KenPom offense means a little bit.
I think it just comes back to Drew Timme. And a few of the other guys that have been there before for Gonzaga.
They're a veteran team.
Yeah, not that Grand Canyon probably doesn't have guys that have won before at certain levels, but being in the tournament and going far in the tournament means a little bit when you come back. And I think that's the kind of thing that's going to give Gonzaga that extra push in a game like this where they're going to be battling. It's going to be just knowing that one little thing, with a minute and a half left, that's going to give your team the extra push.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we got 2 games left. First one, Northwestern versus Boise State. I know we pointed this one out earlier when they revealed it as a very good matchup. I actually picked Northwestern to win the Big Ten tournament on our podcast last week. I thought that they had figured out a bit of a rhythm, winning close games. Northwestern just hangs around. That part of the reason they went on that run is because they're very good at hanging around. Bowie is a fantastic guard. He is as good as any guard in the Big Ten, as any guard in the country. 100% got away with a push-off in that Indiana game. but we'll ignore that for now. I have not watched a lot of Boise State this year, so if anybody's more knowledgeable on Boise, I would love for you to take the reins on this game.
I have one thing, and it's the biggest mistake that I made last year that I will go back on, and I will always say never to do this ever again. First of all, initial thought, this game is an under for sure. Both incredibly crazy defensive teams. Obviously, Northwestern, the better overall strength of schedule for the entire year. One thing that I've learned about betting all these tournaments and following these teams is to never, ever in your entire life bet on any team out of the Mountain West. They always lose, and by substantial numbers. And did I bet all 3 Mountain West teams last year? Yes, I did. And guess what? They all lost by an average score of 23.
You should maybe bet on this one though.
No, I'm not doing it. Boise State will lose.
Northwestern
They will
is
lose.
not.
If they lose 40-30,
Hey.
so be it. But they're going to lose this game.
I'm just saying,
and
Northwestern.
I really hope it bites me in the ass.
Northwestern is not who like they say they are. Really,
No, they really aren't. But at the same time, though, the better overall schedule for the entire year. Which
I understand, but you
have
missed
to
the
give it to
whole Big Ten inconsistent conversation.
Yeah.
No one in the Big Ten is trustable right now.
Not even Purdue.
Literally, because none of them could show up on a day-by-day, not even a day-by-day, a week-by-week basis. I'll give you a tough game on a Tuesday, but then you come out and you show up on Saturday. We couldn't even guarantee that from any of the Big Ten. Not a single one.
Yep.
So I can't trust Northwestern to win this game. I can't trust Indiana to win their game. Purdue is maybe the only one I could possibly trust just because they're a 1 seed playing.
Yeah. That's
Other
the
than
only thing giving you confidence.
I can't trust anyone in the Big Ten to win their game.
Mm.
Trying to find the stat,
You
but
know
I
who we
believe
can
me.
trust, Deej?
Who?
We can trust our awesome energy partners at W Energy.
I love
That's what we
that
call a
did that.
segue. W's keeping us energized through all of March. And guys, there's 0 calories, 0 sugar, 0 maltodextrin, no fillers, no artificial colors. Yes, there's none of that red 40 nonsense in W's formulas. Plus, they have that patented neuro factor in their formula, which has been tested and in studies to enhance brain performance by up to 143%. They're the best in the game. You guys can go to w.gg, use code UNDERGROUND. You get 10% off any order, and go to war on Big Energy because W is something special, and they're going to keep us energized through all of the madness that's happening in March. W.gg, code UNDERGROUND, 10% off your order.
You heard the man. All right, one last game, then I'll give a quick little wrap-up about what the Glue guys have planned for the next week. UCLA versus UNC Asheville in a 2:15 matchup. I think this one's a wash. UCLA is very good at basketball. UNC Asheville is a consistent tournament team, yes, but Jaime Jaquez, as my brother texted me the other day, I would trust Jaime Jaquez with my life, and I agree with that statement.
It's a pretty bold statement for all things.
Yeah. No.
By the way,
UCLA is just such a good team.
Not to revert back to this Boise State thing, but I found my stat. Mountain West teams have 1 win in the last 14 years in the tournament. There you go. Every team to make it from the Mountain West 1 singular win in 2004.
What was that win?
It does not.
Not that it matters if it was 2004, but I'm curious now.
Let me find it. Hold
Look
on.
up the 2004 bracket.
It didn't give me the specific game, so now I'm going to dig back in the bracket archives.
Yeah,
I have a friend who keeps every single bracket he's ever done, and like his brother has been doing them since like the mid '90s. So I can only imagine like he probably has like somewhere in like a shoebox. I can like dig through this thing now.
We know UCLA is a good team, Deej, when the boy Josiah goes on a podcast and says, when their next guy off the bench is a 5-star, you're in pretty good shape when somebody gets injured.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right. Well, that is our whole first round. If this bracket was like interactable, I probably would keep going all the way up to the national champion, but it's not, and I can't remember half of the agreements we made anymore. So look forward to that on Wednesday's episode of the Glue Guys. Like I said at the beginning of the show, Tommy and I will be recording our episode and getting it out a day early this week so that you will have our insights, if you can call them that, a day before the tournament actually begins on Thursday at noon. We will both be filling out a bracket. You can follow it live. I'll be doing it. I'll be filling out my Glue Guys bracket challenge, or for the Underground Sports Philadelphia bracket challenge. I'll be filling out my personal Glue Guys bracket for that challenge. We'll be putting it live on the podcast, so you'll be able to see me actually making my picks and talking through the stuff with Tom here on Tuesday. And that video will be up on YouTube Wednesday morning, and the audio will always, of course, be on Spotify and the Apple Podcast networks. This has been the first Glue Guys live stream. Couldn't have come at a better time with Selection Sunday in probably one of the most chaotic and uncertain college basketball seasons we've seen in a long time. I am super, super excited. March is finally here. The next weekend, Thursday through Sunday. I would take that over Christmas any day. Any day. That's how I feel about it. That's why I started this show.
One of the best weekends of sports
of
the entire year.
By far.
It is one of the most elite weekends we get in a calendar year, simply because the opening round of March Madness is damn near undefeated in terms of sporting events.
It absolutely is. It's never boring. I think there was only 1 year, maybe 2017. I think was probably one of the more boring opening rounds. There weren't really a lot of buzzer beaters. Like I said, I mentioned I went to the first round games in Buffalo. First game we saw was Princeton Notre Dame 5-12 matchup. That game was close. It was like a 5-point win for Notre Dame. Every other game was a blowout. Every single other game was a blowout. I don't remember any buzzer beaters that year. I don't remember any like overtimes or anything like that. Every single game that year. But that's like the 1 year. That was like the 1 year. And of course, we have the crappiest first round and the crappiest result because UNC won the freaking title.
Yep.
But anyway, so like I said, look forward to the new episode on Wednesday. Follow the Twitter page if you need the @ it's on our little banner running along the bottom of the screen there. Follow the Glue Guys CBB on Twitter. We'll be tweeting updates because, as we said, we will be doing some live color commentary for some Let's Watches of games that we're going to select over the next couple of days. We'll get in the chat and we'll figure out what games we want to do that for. So be sure to tune into those. Those will probably all be on Thursday because it is St. Patrick's Day on Friday, and Lord knows I will not be well enough to do a stream that day. So it might be some weird text sent in the Glue Guys chat. I don't know. Anyway,
for that.
Anyway, all right. Thank you, everybody who tuned in. Thank you to Kyle for setting this up, and for DJ, Steve, and Patty, all for showing out and helping me get this first live stream off the air. Wish Tommy could have been here. I know he would have had a lot of fun with this. This is the most I've had to talk in a long time because he's very good at carrying the narrative. But you'll be able to hear his lovely voice again on Wednesday morning. Thank you all for coming out and supporting. Hopefully we'll do this again same time next year. So see you guys later. This has been the Glue Guys' first live stream.
Michigan for the NIT.
Future on repeat the rest of the month.
Well, I like it, man.